2 weeks ago, I wrote about how each of us has a purpose. I explained how our lives are not meaningless and that there is comfort in knowing that God has a plan for us. I can't help but feel like most people can accept that God has a plan, but they still question why God would ever choose them to fulfill it. We look at all our shortcomings and think that He would probably choose anyone but us. Well, He chose you. He knows exactly who you are and chose you all the same. Jeremiah 1:5 shows, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations." Being someone who suffered from low self-esteem, I can understand the confusion on why God chooses us. I mean, I'm no one special. I'm not overly intelligent. I have no extraordinary talents. I'm not one of those people that stands out amongst a crowd. I'm not breathtakingly beautiful. I am average. I am a short Chilena with her own personal issues. Yet, God chose me. Why? Because God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. 1 Corinthians 1:26-27 says, "For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty." In the Bible, we find several examples of God using people that maybe we would not have chosen. There's David. When we first see David, he is a young boy who was chosen to face off someone much bigger and stronger than he was. Goliath was a warrior, and he had experience with fighting. This young boy, logically, couldn't stand a chance. However, God chose him. With God's help, David defeated a man that a whole army was afraid to face off with. At the other end of the age spectrum, there's Abraham. When we first see Abraham, he was up there in age. When we look at older people, we might see someone who is feeble and weak. Yet, God chose him, even though he was past the age of retirement. It doesn't matter how old you are, God still chooses you. Sometimes we think God would never choose us because we don't have the skills needed to do anything God would want us to do. I am sure you have heard of a man named Moses. Now, Moses is very well known for freeing the Israelites from the Egyptians. Well, before Moses led the Israelites to freedom, he had his own doubts on whether he could take on such a task. When God spoke to Moses in the form of a burning bush, he came up with excuse after excuse. One of the excuses that people tend to overlook is when Moses states that he is slow of speech and slow of tongue. This is not to say that he had a speech impediment, but that he didn't think he had the skills to fulfill this task. In all his imperfection, God chose him. The same goes for you. Other times, we don't think we are worthy enough to be chosen because of things in our past. However, this is still not the case. One of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Matthew, which was written by Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples. Did you know that Matthew was a tax collector? In those times, tax collectors were the worst of the worst. They were Israelites chosen to take taxes. However, most would take more than they needed just so they could make some extra money for themselves. Jesus knew exactly who Matthew was and what he had done, yet he still chose him. Then there's Paul. Paul wrote a big portion of the Bible and became an amazing advocate for Jesus. However, before he was saved, Paul was very different. He was a Pharisee. Those who followed Jesus were blasphemers in his sight. So, he dedicated himself to finding Jesus' followers and persecuting them. One wouldn't think that someone like this could be chosen, but he was. God transformed his life, and he became an amazing influence. There is nothing so bad that you cannot come back from. Even when we look at Jesus himself, we see that, aside from everything he did, he was just like us. He was born into a poor family. When he was born, he was literally sleeping in a feeding trough. He didn't have a high social standing. As he grew older, he didn't have a highly respected career. He was a carpenter. Yet this poor carpenter is the one who came to save us all. It is because of him that we are saved. John 1:12-13 says, "But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God." Therefore, do not question why God chose you. He chose you for a reason. It doesn't matter if you are too young, too old, not skilled enough, or even if you are not a saint. God knows that we all fall short of his glory, yet he loves us and forgives us. His mercy is so great that, even though we are sinners, he still uses us to fulfill his plan. Don't let this opportunity go to waste. Ask God to give you understanding and wisdom to see his works and his plans in your life. John 15:16 says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you."
Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to check out my blog, which you will find a link to it in the description below. I hope you all have a blessed day. Before I go, I will leave you with this. In Numbers 6:24-26, it says, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace."